Right, welcome back, Science 7. As you may know, we are going back to online learning briefly. The reason being is because we are facing coronavirus situation with the positive cases. However, learning doesn't stop. So as you may notice, I am going to use my on-spot video. I may not edit as much as I don't have a lot of time on going through each lesson in a good way. But in any case, you can look every single thing, my note, and so on as time go. Last time we were talking about how human activity can affect the soil condition. As you may notice, when you look at the clearing land, you will notice that we have many different type of trees and shrubs. We basically have a small enough minor ecosystem, micro version of ecosystem over here. We have many variety. However, as soon as clearing land is happening, as you may notice, only certain species, few species are the one that is choose to stay in there with variety of reason. For some people, it is used to make instead of climax stage of succession, they are choosing to have oak tree only or any type of other trees only. That's one of the method. So clearing land, ladies and gentlemen, it has to be done very carefully because the soil is not exposed to the weather condition. What I mean by that is this. Let's go back to the picture. Before situation, we have not much of canopy. So I'm going to put in here that before was equal to view canopy. That's a fancy way of saying you don't have lots of sunlight coming up. However, when we clear the land, then suddenly we have many different type of canopy, and it can be a big area like the one that you see over here, which is these region, or few spot like this. In any case, if you think about Alberta's weather condition, a large amount of canopy is not good because we will have some kind of frost formation and you will have lots of ice formation happening in these area, which is not good for decomposers too, because decomposers, they are very sensitive to abiotic factors and temperature is one of them. Other part, a pounding rain can compact the soil and fill the pores with water. If you remember, pores, ladies and gentlemen, was, I'm gonna choose purple color. Imagine you have particles, soil particles. And obviously, we have different size of the particle depends on whether it's a silt soil, silt soil, sandy soil, those kind of other different type of soil. But in any case, imagine this is the area of the soil. When it comes to pores, pores are these type of space where you can have enough of air and enough of water, which is H2O liquid. However, we are having limited amount of air conditioning inside of this soil once we have too much of rain. So I want you to highlight and yellow color, highlight this rain condition, because as soon as there's rain, then what's going to happen is waters will take all of these areas, and as soon as that happens, you will know that there's less room for air, and air, which is gases, those gas will located on a certain part of the area, not the entire area, because gravity make the water go down towards the center of the earth. So that's why. So pounding rain can compact the soil and fill the pore with water. Then also, all right, sorry about that. The video was cut off a little bit. But long story short, when it comes to clearing lands, because we don't have, sorry, more canopy, you need to be aware of dryness. And at the same time, you need to be careful that soil doesn't get compacted, because if it's compacted like clay, then plants will have a hard time putting their roots in it. Another thing that I like to focus with, but basically the last part, um, where I can see is this: without planche, soil will crack, because extreme dryness for soil is the cracking and breaking apart. You may see plowing process before. Alberta is quite a lot of Alberta is one of the biggest business other than oil industry is actually agriculture, along with Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And you guys may have seen these kind of big Caterpillar equipment, the one that does not only the harvesting, if you attach at the back, but also plowing. Plowing is a process of raking and mixing. Back in old time, people use livestock like cows, two cows, four cows, and then they have big metal rake at the back so that it's gonna mix the topsoil over. And that's what I want you to put a highlight on. Turning the top layer over by cutting and mixing. The reason raking and mixing play such a huge role in agriculture industry is because of this. First of all, pores are affected. You can break some of those particles apart, and then we can have more number of pores or size of the pores, so that water can go evenly, air can go evenly, and at the same time you can do the same process so that plants can build their roots in a solid way. Second reason is distribution of nutrients. The reason nutrients can be distributed so easily is because, first of all, organic particles and some of those nitrate particles in a fertilizer, they can go around easily. And number three, which I don't have a lot of space in here, so I'm gonna put it way down there. You can put lots of successful seeds in it. That's another reason. So those play such a huge role. When it comes to plowing, like I mentioned, one of the most important reason is it creates more pores. Although it emphasizes air, but I like to put that it is both air and water, H2O liquid, so that those abiotic condition can be evenly distributed to bigger area. There is a process called trash cover, ladies and gentlemen. Trash cover basically use some of those dead matters actually. Trash cover is a stubble and plant material, and I emphasize a plant material because that protects the soil from wind erosion. Erosion is the process where you're having a little bit of a cut off, or I like to say cutting process, and generally it's done by the nature. Wind, rain, those kind of forces actually make the soil getting eroded. But if we, for example, kill a bunch of weeds on the ground and then have a little bit of a thin layer or cover, then those dead matters actually protect the soil. And at the same time, you can give a little bit extra nutrients. But one thing that you need to understand is everybody need to cut the roots of the weed, because they are really good at spreading their seeds. The last part of today's lesson is crop rotation. And when it comes to crop rotation, ladies and gentlemen, we actually discussed about this crop rotation quite a while for a few days now. The reason being is this is one of the best method to utilize and increase our yields. It's one of those effective way to use a limited space actually. You can do this at the backyard too if you're the gardeners. Basically, one thing that you need to understand is growing same type of crop. So for example, if you're a farmer and then if you are just doing corn farm for every single year, it's actually not good for your soil. There are two reasons. The reason being is number one, some crops use same kind of soil, use same kind of abiotic factor. So it depletes similar type of nutrients in the soil. And another part is, for example, if you think about carrots, carrots are taproot, like what you see over here. That is a big vertical roots. If you have carrot farm all the time, every single rotation or whatever that harvest season is, then the funny thing is the soil will have really weak vertical structure. In fact, in that case, you may need to find some other crop that can grow in a similar condition as a carrot, but you can see that if you choose other crop, it better be not a tap root, it can be fibrous root so that it go horizontally rather. So soil structures will get damaged. So similar nutrients are used. So why crop rotation is important? Well, like I mentioned, same crop uses the same type of nutrients in every cycle. So as you may notice, when it comes to this entire circular process, you may notice that everything starts with the plantation, that's seeding. So you start with the seed, and then we prepare it to be grown. That's several months or several weeks, depends on how big or how fast you're growing. Harvest season, and we protect and then make sure the soil is ready to use. But again, if the soils are using same type of nutrients, then you gotta buy lots of fertilizers too. And chemical fertilizer, as you may notice, it provides bunch of acidic problems. Look at the example over here. This is a good example of crop rotation. As you may notice, if you use same type of the crop, that is a poor category because of two reasons again. The soil structure will be disrupted, and at the same time, the nutrition level of the soil, it's not going to be good. However, on the other hand, if you look at the second example, as you may notice, we choose two different types, corn and soybean. Corn and soybean do not overlap to whatever the nutrients level that they need or soil condition. They do not share a lot, so it is rather better. But as you may notice, because of these two kinds, the pairs repeat. These are also different type, same type of stress for the soil, so it's not recommended as a long term. On the other hand, if you look at the better example at the bottom, second from the bottom, you may notice that corn, wheat, soybean, we have three different kinds are the one that is being repeated. And when it comes to best situation, corn, wheat, soybean, and alfalfa, you may notice that there are no overlap. Depends on the situation. This is a good example. But after year four, you can start corn again because remember, abiotic factors they take a long time to get replenished. For example, if you have lots of potassium in it and potassium needs to go back into the soil, it does require lots of time. All right, let's look at another example. This is more backyard situation. As you may notice, at the backyard, let's see you have a one patch. We call it bed one, second, and third. Year one, you can choose to do tomatoes and then legume, and then carrot over here. But after that year, as you may notice, you don't want to have tomatoes in the same bed. You rather choose to go with rotation. So imagine carrot goes there and tomatoes go here, and the last plant goes to the bed 3. So as you may notice, we are rotating every single year. Then after that, carrot will go to bed 2, tomato to bed 3, and to bed 1. And once that's happening, year 3, gonna do the same thing, and tomato will probably go back to the bed 1 when it comes to the 4th year. This is a crop rotation example. Sometime if it's extreme, as you may notice, you can have more than one type of plant for a year. Like for example, technically tomatoes, you don't need to wait for entire year for the crop. You can actually have it for several different seasons, and in few weeks to month actually tomatoes are pretty fast. So as you may notice, you can choose to do tomato for several months, then carrot for several months. You can actually do that even within a year. Same thing when it comes to each of those. For example, as you can see, root, it's more tap root example, which is one single vertical root. And as you can see, you can go with the tap, root type, fruit type, leaf type, legume type, those kind of different type of rotation routine with examples. So you don't have to choose, for example, edamame beans for every single year. You don't have to. You can actually choose that versus lima beans. Or this year you choose to do carrots, but next year, who knows, you can do beetroot. And when it comes to fruit situation, maybe you can start with an eggplant, and then after a few years, you can change into tomatoes. Same thing for cabbages, but change into lettuce. There are lots of variation you can apply. Now, as a last activity and homework, here's what I will ask you to do. You have two different sections of the homework today. One is doing this science log activity in your work booklet, and your substitute teacher will provide you textbook questions that I will show you at the end of this video. So when it comes to science log activities, I want you to either use a crop rotation chart that is given inside of this booklet, or you can research using Google. There are lots of examples, and I want you to design your own crop rotation. So imagine you are a farmer, or imagine you have some kind of backyard that is large enough that you have a bed 1, bed 2, bed 3, and bed 4. And I want you to build that rotation pattern.